Hello and welcome to Dongamet channel. Today I became very excited by viewing a video from Mr. Beatus Blades wherein he damaged his apex on his TJ Schwartz Overland knife by cutting a matchstick. I mean a toothpick. I thought this was kind of remarkable. I wasn't really familiar with the toothpick test per se as a test, but seems like a really pretty smart test. So I got all excited in the comments there because there were a few things that caught my interest about this toothpick cutting test. One is that, well, if there is a toothpick cutting test, then we have to consider the consistency of our medium. And I know that there are wooden toothpicks and bamboo wood toothpicks, so I looked into that online. And I think I probably have here an example of each, because these are some high-end sustainable toothpicks impregnated with essential oils of cinnamon and tea tree oil and what have you. They're really good. I love these toothpicks, but when I can't find them, I may resort to the cheaper ones, which are almost undoubtedly Mosso bamboo. And so relatively janka hardness, assuming this is birch, that's about 950 foot-pounds. And Mosso bamboo can range between 1,000 and 1,500, depending on the tightness of the grain. Now, I would assume that the toothpick manufacturers would be looking for a tighter grain to make a better end product. Or at least probably not the loosest grain. So I think we can conclude that a bamboo toothpick is harder than a birchwood toothpick, perhaps not very substantially. However, one thing is resistance to deformation, and another thing is the relative abrasivity of the medium, or the ability of the grain. Different grains and different media act differently in how they may trap an apex, and so forth. So I left this big long comment. I spoke about that, and I also spoke about cutting on cardboard, because I noticed that Beatus was putting his toothpick on a piece of cardboard. And so here's what, oh no, I shouldn't have moved that, because, let me see here. Where was it? There. Yeah. So I took out this Justin Richards kitchen knife in ABL steel. Well, first I grabbed this one, actually. So this is a thrift store knife from Taiwan. It was a kind of a cleaver style, and I made it into this butcher knife. And it's a wonderful knife. The steel is probably not that great. I would guess 440A. But it is quite, I think they got a good heat treatment on it, and it was tough grinding, getting it to be like this. And it's a good performer, and it holds an edge okay. It was dull when I went to pick it up, so I honed her right up on a 800 grit rod. This knife is not very sharp, but it's so thin that it's certainly okay for kitchen use anyway, even if the apex is not screaming sharp right now. So I took both of these out and I started chopping toothpicks. And so first of all, you can chop it on the board, and it really doesn't seem like any kind of problem for either of these knives. Oops. We got a freshie. We got a freshie of the cheaper ones. I'm going to stop destroying the good ones. I like to destroy them with my teeth. Okay. Yeah. No, it'll leave, you'll see a little mark there maybe, where it went. Well, no, we can't see anything. Anyway, I think you could take my word for it that this edge is pretty unperturbed. And it's fairly thin. I would guess this is probably, there is no BTE per se, because this is all convexed. But I would equate it to, maybe 10, 15 behind the edge, depending on where you are. Now, this one is very thin. I don't know. This is, maybe 7 or something, or 6, 5. I don't know. Very thin, very thin. You can see it's a tiny little micro bevel there. Well, it's not tiny, but it's pretty much a micro bevel. And this, I could go ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. But then what happened? I moved my marker again. What happened when I put the toothpick on the cardboard and did the same thing with the same knife? Let me see if I can focus in on this. Please. This phone is junk. Yeah, you can see that damage, huh? Same toothpick, same knife, suddenly apex damage. You know, not drastic, not catastrophic, but very notable. I did a whoopsie. Why? By cutting on cardboard. How did that happen? Do I need to explain? Maybe. Maybe I do. The cardboard is flexible. So now I'm not just wedging my way through. See how it's folding in? Okay. So when I've cut halfway through the round of the toothpick, the part that isn't cut is now, well, excuse me, the part that is cut is now pinching in, right? As the toothpick folds in, it's pinching in behind the apex, right? Pinching, 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 finally, ping, there is an explosive, literally explosive release of energy, right? The little bits of toothpick go pang, and you can hear the difference, right? I'm not going to do it again with that knife because I've already seen that I could damage it, and I'd rather not damage it again. But let's listen, just listen to the difference. Whoops. Hold still now. Should have got a bigger piece of cardboard, really. But I don't see that it makes a difference. You know, the cardboard is going to flex. And it made a, I heard it when that little bit of damage occurred. Crack, right? Because that steel is so thin, so thin, so thin behind the edge. In this direction, yeah, it's got backup. But in this direction, there's no backup. So you pinch in, and crack. So if you're going to do this toothpick test, either you're going to always do it on cardboard, and therefore assure yourself this is a stress test. You are stressing, you are putting an uncommon stress. There's no stress like that is going to occur on your knife during the entire skinning of an elephant. Even if you're rubbing up against bone, you know, you're not sticking the blade into the bone and then it pinching. And, you know, this is a very specific effect, which is why it's a good test, I think, in a way. It's a good stress test. But I don't think it's a condemnation of a blade that you can damage it by putting it through a toothpick that's sat on cardboard. It's really a lot like if you have a freestanding branch, say about as thick as my finger, hemlock, let's say, if I come in with this knife at 90 degrees, yeah, on that freestanding branch, wibbling a little bit in the wind, and I go thwack at 90 degrees, what happens? The branch bends up, yeah, it receives the impact and it folds around. As this is traveling into it, it is folding around and it is biting back. And this knife, with one strike like that against a finger-thick, unsupported hemlock or beech branch, I could wreck this knife. I could leave this knife so that it's becoming a petty knife, okay? Or maybe a petty knife, you know, if I hit it here, right, maybe I can get a petty knife here, and then I can somehow get myself a little paring knife out of this part here. Or I'm going to have a recurved kitchen knife or something, you know, messed up. So does that mean that there's a problem with this knife? It is doing all right, you know. I will say that, you know, they say ABL, it can be screaming thin, it can hold an edge. Blah, blah, blah. No, this knife performs wonderfully But this blade was maybe a third of an inch or a half of an inch wider upon acquisition a couple of years back. So, it's getting sharpened down. Oh, yeah, excellent performer. That's what we like. Top performance. Still, it's, horses for courses. Neither of these are toothpick cutting knives. I was going to grab that orange Ozark Trail. That's a toothpick cutter. But anyway, who cares? Thanks for watching. Bye.